Hello there and welcome back to Bullets for Bucks. I'm Stephen Bresnaugh and today we're going over 300 PRC versus 6.5 PRC. So the 300 precision rifle cartridge versus 6.5 precision rifle cartridges, both developed by Hornady for long-range shooting and hunting. The 6.5 PRC is basically the 6.5 Creedmoor, but on steroids and basically a Magnum version. It still requires, for the most part, a long action and a Magnum bolt, and it definitely requires a Magnum bolt face. The 300 PRC requires a long action and has a very long overall length. Of course, this carries a much heavier projectile. In fact, this one carries a 225 grain ELDM match tip bullet. This happens to be a 147 grain ELDM match tip bullet by Hornady. Both these are factory offerings. So pretty obvious that this one's going to carry way more recoil and a lot more energy downrange, and it's going to be able to buck the wind better and not get as much wind deviation. This is a smaller bullet, so it's going to get deflected more in the wind. The BC is lower, and it doesn't have as much weight behind it. The 300 PRC is going about 2,810 feet per second with the factory offering. The drop, the amount of energy in foot-pounds is 3945. That's incredible. The drop at 500 yards is 38.4 inches, and it's going 2,250 feet per second at 500 yards. Now, of course, these are estimates, and each gun will vary in muzzle velocity. The muzzle velocity on the 6.5 PRC is 2,960 feet per second, and at 500 yards it drops 36.2 inches, so it drops less than the 300 PRC. It's shooting at a higher velocity, and so it has a flatter trajectory out to a certain range than the 300 PRC. However, at extended long range, ELR, beyond just your normal 1,000 or 1,200 or 1,400 yards, the 300 PRC will far outperform the 6.5 PRC at distances beyond a mile. Another thing to mention is that at 500 yards, the foot-pounds is 2528 with this 300 PRC, and with the 6.5 PRC, it's only 1604. So from a hunter's perspective, the 300 PRC is going to pack a lot more punch and knockdown power on an animal than the 6.5 PRC. Both are plenty enough to take an elk ethically. However, if you're looking at competing at yardages, let's say below 1,200 yards, even 1,400 yards, I would recommend getting the 6.5 PRC. If you're looking at shooting extreme long ranges beyond a mile or at a mile, I would recommend the 300 PRC. Drawback to the 300 PRC. The overall length can make it difficult to even chamber, or can make it difficult to work with even in a long action. And the recoil is going to be way greater. So if you're recoil sensitive, you definitely are going to feel it with the 300 PRC. The 6.5 PRC is a lighter, shorter cartridge that you're not going to have any problems with in a long action, and it's going to have a far less recoil, and inherently you're probably going to shoot this one more accurate at the range than this one, just because this is going to have a lot less recoil. Both don't have a lot as far as factory offerings on the market right now. The factory offerings are just pretty much Hornady. You got two options for the 300 PRC, and you pretty much got two options for the 6.5 PRC. And so if you're looking at buying either one of these, keep in mind that if you're not going to exclusively reload, or you're going to be traveling around and you might need to buy ammunition, I don't recommend either one of these right now until the market catches up, because they're hard to find and there's not a lot of offerings out there. Another drawback of the 300 PRC is the price. The price for ammunition for this 300 PRC is going to be greater in most cases than the 6.5 PRC. Anyways, this was a very not really in-depth review, and so if you have any comments or advice you'd like to give, go ahead and mention it in the comment section below, and I look forward to hearing back from you.